What it do, Barrett gang? I'm back, baby, with another video. And this video is my life story video. I told you guys at 50K, I give you the life story. So here it is. I appreciate all the love and support, and we can continue to grow. And y'all stay tuned, baby. All right, Barrett gang, this is where it all happened. I was born here at North Memorial Hospital, 11/12/1987, and by my mom, Yvonne, and my father, Chico. Let's get this life story rolling, baby. So I'm the fourth oldest of 7. My mom has 4 boys, Kevin being the oldest, then me being the second oldest, then my little brother, Corey, being the third oldest, and then her youngest one, Officer Jones, Derry Jones, being the youngest. Then my dad has another boy, which is the baby of all of us, Robert Barrett. And then I have 2 older sisters, Tiffany Barrett and Trishana Barrett. This is where it all started. This is where I pretty much, from what I can remember as a child, as the youngest age I could go, probably maybe like 3 years old, 4 years old, I can remember I used to live here. This is right here, 412. This is where I used to live at, and spent up here until I was 6, 7 years old, and then I moved to 544. There's a lot of good memories as a child here that I remember, but this is pretty much from a young age, what I can remember. This is where I remember growing up at, and it all starting and me becoming who I am today. I can remember just playing video games, Super Nintendo with my dad, Dr. Tetris, Mario Karts, just playing like various games with my dad. Significant time, I actually had my first surgery when I was younger, had a little hernia. Mainly what I can remember is I went to the hospital, they gave me medicine, put the little mask on me, I fell asleep, woke up screaming, crying. My dad was there by my side, and I just remember I couldn't walk for a while, and my dad would pick me up from the couch, take me up to the bathroom. So a significant part of that time, my dad was around and there taking care of me. Just mainly just happy times of just being a kid and enjoying hanging out with my dad. All right, so this is a townhome I spent most of the majority of my time in. You guys seen 412, that's the one I lived in originally, the first one. But as I got older, about like 6, 7, I spent a lot of time at 544. I lived here till I was 15 years old, until I moved with my mom. So I spent a good amount of, about 9 years here at this townhome. A lot of memories, a lot of good, a lot of bad. You know, it's a give and take memories. So a lot of times you know, growing up, I was being the only one living with my dad, me and my younger brother, Robert, being the only ones living with my father. I lived here. This used to be my bedroom right up here in this window right there. Most vivid times I remember is just times I was sitting out the window looking, seeing my mom drop my brothers off, and I would be so excited to see her. You know, I was excited to see my brothers at the same time, but I was so excited to see my mom because that was my opportunity to go out to my mom and ask her if I could come over to her house the next weekend. And I would go out there, and there's a lot of times where I go out there and I ask my mom, can I come over? And she say, no, not this weekend. And I heard that a lot of times, and it just made me sad. And even to this day, like, you know, it makes me sad that she would do that to me. And I have understanding because, you know, my mom would tell me, as I got older, she told me that the reason why was because, you know, she was young, she had a lot of kids, and at this time, you know, I'm now older, I'm like 11, 12, you know, and I had still couldn't have no understanding to like why I still can't come over, why I can't be with you, why I can't go over your house, and, you know, why my brothers come here, but I don't get to go over your house. And, you know, my dad, I remember times where it happened, and every day my dad was there to tell me, son, it'll be okay, and like, you know, I'm sorry you have to go through this and it'll be okay, but like, still doesn't help me understand what I was going through at the time and why I couldn't get what I was yearning for, which was my mom's love, my mom's attention, my mom's time. So I spent a lot of times in those windows just being sad, crying, you know, missing her. And I don't know. Eventually, as you know, the years went by, a couple more years went by, I turned about 14, probably 13. She finally let me come over to her house one weekend. And it was probably like the biggest joy, because like I finally got to go over to my mom's house, spend the weekend with my brothers at their house, and just kind of see like how my brothers live, because I've never lived the way they live. I've always lived different. You know, my brother Corey would come over, you know, and my brother Kevin, my brother DJ, they would come over. But for the most part, I was the only one who really lived with my dad. And growing up with my dad was definitely an experience. I mean, my dad has taught me so much. You know, I just want to make sure I let you guys know that like my dad is a big role model in my life. He's like really helped me mold me into become a young man. You know, I feel like as I got older, I kind of figured out the ropes myself and kind of went with what I know from what he taught me. So growing up with my dad, there was a lot of times where it was difficult, you know, like you know, being a son and not having their mom. It's hard because, you know, I yearn for a mother's love and it's not there. So the only love I got really is my dad. And my dad didn't really have that motherly love, that affection love. It was more like a tough love. It was like, son, you gotta grow up. Son, you gotta be this. Son, you gotta do this. Son, you gotta, you know, it's a lot molding me to be an adult. Just a little background on my dad. He was raised from the streets pretty much. Didn't really, you know, have that fatherly affection he didn't have his father around. So, you know, he just had his mother, and his mother kind of was a single mom with, you know, plenty of kids. And my dad kind of just was on his own little thing when he was young. So he kind of was in the streets and gang banging and stuff like that. So when he had me, it's just like, I'm the son living with him. You know, he's got to be responsible for me. And, you know, he wasn't perfect.
Hello?
What's going on, Dad?
Oh, hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm alright.
Yeah. Well, you didn't know it was me?
Huh?
So what, you didn't know it was me?
It said something, Tammy Nail or something.
Oh, is that what you got it stored under?
That's what it says when your number rings.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm out here. I'm over here by doing the little life story thing. I'm over here by the townhomes where I grew up in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm over here. It's weird. It's all still look almost the same still. Yeah, I'm over here by 544.
Okay.
Yeah, we went up to Harrison Park and stuff and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was going well, maybe you could text me the address and see where it is. I'll come out there.
All right. Just let me know when I text it to you.
Okay. He spent a lot of time with me. He put in a lot of time, you know, as you guys can recall from the beginning part of this video. I've been with Dad pretty much forever. So up until I was about 15 years old. But up until that time, he took care of me for the whole part of that time by himself. And when that time came for me and I was like, finally, you know, it was open door for me to go live with my mom, I was, of course, you know, I was ready to jump on that because that's what I've been yearning for this whole time. So when the time came and I did do that, you know, my dad was highly upset about it. You know, he didn't like that. He put in a lot of time with me and, you know, he didn't know how to handle it. So in the way of him handling it, you know, he just went about it in not the best ways. I mean, like me and my dad probably, you know, as I got older, better communication, but like during that time, like I needed communication from my dad. I needed some understanding that he knew what I was going through and like could like talk with me, and I never had that. I never had that talk with my dad, like, which is always just, I was scared. Didn't know what was gonna happen, think I was gonna get whooped or something, like. And so when the time came and I turned 15, it was time to go, you know, he asked me if I wanted to go live with my mom. He made me feel comfortable to tell him yeah. And, you know, I told him yeah, and I don't know. Went to bed and he woke me up in the middle of the night, you know, upset about it because, you know, I can understand, like, he spent a lot of time with me. He did a lot for me, and I always loved my dad, you know, but he did a lot for me, and, you know, it's just what I yearned for was to be with my mom, and that upset him. And, you know, he just took it out on me and, you know, stick like, you know, he had a little fish knife. He was like sticking it in my nose. He's sticking it on my cheek. Want to cut me and, you know, just want to do things to harm me. And like, I just, at the time and the age, like I just really couldn't understand because I don't know why you want to be like that with me. Like, it's nothing against my dad, you know, it was nothing against him. It's just, I needed my mom, you know, like I never had that from her and she finally made it available. It was just like, you know, I don't know, it's just hard because like, I don't want him to feel like he's a bad dad because I love him. I still love him now, you know, it's just that I can't hide what you did to me, you know. Like that stuff affect me, like all that stuff you did to me, beating me and like doing all that stuff harmed me, man. Like, I still don't understand as a kid, you know what I mean? But now that I'm grown, I'm like, okay, then that was just like, there's other ways to do it than that. I could never imagine, bro, like, I just couldn't imagine doing that to my kids, man. I just couldn't imagine.
All right, yeah, I'll text you. I'll text you, Dad.
All right.
All right, I love you, Dad.
All right, love you too.
All right.
All right.
Now that I got my mom, that part is out the window. Now I can figure out what I want to do next. So now I'm interested in girls, and I met my kid's mom, which is my mom, the mother of Amari, Jeremy Jr., and Jordan. So I met her my freshman year in Patrick Henry High School. I met her. We started dating for about a month. Things didn't work out too great. We broke up. But sophomore year, we go to the same school. I started talking to her again. This time, we start, you know, getting more affectionate. We start like hugging, kissing, you know, and then kissing led to, you know, having sex. And I lost my virginity to my kid's mom when I was 15 years old. After I lost my virginity, 2 weeks later from there, we had sex again, and that's when she got pregnant with my daughter, Amari, which is a life-changing event for me, because then at that time, I knew I had to grow up. There was no more being a kid. I had to take care of my responsibilities and raise my daughter.
All right, Barrett Gang, this is where it all started as a young man, getting my feet up underneath me. I got my first job here when I found out
My kid's mom was pregnant with our daughter, my first child. This is my very first job here at this McDonald's. This is where I started to become a young man and an adult and live in an adult age to be able to provide for my daughter and take care of my daughter. Here is where I worked for a couple years and got my feet wet and learned what it took to be an adult.
So I let my mom know. I said, hey mom, you know, my kid's mom is pregnant. And my mother then told my dad.
He wasn't too happy about it, you know, so he picked me up and he came here with my little brother Corey, and they picked me up when I got off work. And you know, my dad started to explain to me like pretty much, you know, all the discipline he was going to do to me. And you know, I was pretty terrified and scared at the time, and I didn't want to take that type of physical harm. So at this point, my dad picks me up, we drive into his house, and we get to his garage. He lets us in the garage and he goes out the door, and he tells he tells us to get out. So we get out and we go through the big part of the garage. And I tell my little brother, I said, hey bro, like I can't do this. I'm too scared. Like I'm a run. My brother was like, all right bro, just go, man. He's like, I'll go. So I took my work, you know, the little slip resistant shoes they give you for McDonald's. I had those little slip resistant shoes on. I took those things off and I got the boogie in. I was gone. I ran away, you know. It was my first time ever running away. And so I ran away, and when I ran away, you know, I got to a store and I kind of just told them what was going on. I told them they need to hide me, you know, and he put me away because my dad's the type of person where, you know, it's going to take a lot to stop him from coming to get you. So I had to make sure I was secured in a room where he couldn't get me. So I got away, and you know, at that point in time, they sent me to
my sister's house. And at this time, I'm living at my sister's house for a couple days, and then I finally go back to my mom's house. Now, in the meantime of all this stuff taking place, you know, I'm young. I was talking to a girl at McDonald's. And as I'm talking to a girl that I worked with, she was a couple years older than me. You know, she was grown, 19 years old. I made a mistake, and I was talking to this girl while my kid's mom was pregnant. And long story short, got caught into the situation, never did nothing with the girl, went out on a date with the girl. When all that stuff settled, me and the kid's mom decided to stay together, and we had another child, which then came Jeremy Jr., I'm sorry. Then came Jeremy Jr., and then we was just dealing with a lot of infidelity on her side, you know. Tried to figure out kind of what was going on, and never really was able to figure out what was going on. Try to fix everything I can for my family because I grew up in a broken home, and I didn't want my kids to, you know, grow up in a broken home. So I did everything I could to try to fix, you know, my past mistake, and to try to fix whatever, you know, she might be feeling at the time. So I figured that everything was fixed, and you know, then a couple years later, we fast forward, and here comes Jordan. My youngest son between me and my kid's mom is Jordan. We had Jordan, and infidelity was still going on. So then at this point in time, I decided that if you're not happy and things aren't going the way you expect them to go, and you're not happy, you have to find happiness. And then if you don't, you're gonna deal with other issues. So I decided to find my happiness, and it wasn't being with my kid's mom. I hung out with my brother a lot, my older brother, Kevin. We hung out, and at this time, he liked to go out a lot. I was not the type of person that liked to go out a bunch. So my brother wanted to go out. I was hesitant to go out. He knew that I didn't like him going out by himself. And at this time, he was going out by himself. He didn't have no friends that was gonna go with him. So I went out with him. And then at this point in time, I met my lady, Melissa. To this club called Cream. Had this beautiful lady come up to me, grab my hand, and I seen her, and I was pretty impressed.
Keep in mind, that's completely out of character for me. I mean, not that I wouldn't do that, but that's not like something I would do if I wasn't drinking. So keep in mind, we meet at this club, both of us, like I'm out with one of my best friends, Allison, and he's out with his, you know, best friend, brother, Kevin. Neither of us are looking for anything. Like,
and so then at that time, she decided to come dance with me. She danced with me, and I asked her what's her. I asked her what's her. What you guys see right now is what probably was when we was first started talking to one another. So she came up to me. She danced with me. I asked her what's her name. She told me her name. She asked what my name is. I told her my name. And then I asked her, you know, well, no, I think she asked me. You asked me, didn't you?
All I remember is like exiting the club, you know, because
she asked me for my
like
number.
That Usher song was playing, like "Love in the Club," and this is what it plays back in my mind is like leaving the club and like we're exchanging phone numbers at this point, and I'm just like, I've obviously been drinking heavily where I've made a pass on a man that I'm like, hey, I like you. I like you. Yeah. So then I'm like,
let me tell this part, because I make it sound better.
Yeah, right.
So she takes my number, I take her number. Well, she puts her number in my phone. She puts her number in my phone and she gets my number. So end of the night ends, we go home, she goes her way, and I called her that night. She didn't answer.
You'll wonder why.
So she didn't answer. Next morning comes, she calls me. And now I'll let her tell this part because then she can explain what.
From where I'm coming from. So like, obviously, Jeremy, like we have this moment and whatever it looks like leaving, we go our separate ways. But I look back through my text message log or like call log, and what does it say? What does it say, Melissa? Cute boy from the club. All right, we're gonna star 6-7 this dude. Ring, ring, ring. We get to voicemail. What does this dude's voicemail say?
Listen, you guys.
You want me to impersonate it, or you want to impersonate it?
Tell him.
You know who it is. I'm like, this dude right now. Like, what is going on?
The first time we had an official date night, I took her out to, mind you guys, I was young, you know, give me some credit, you know, young, I took her to Wendy's.
Man,
you know?
I don't think I've ate Wendy's since.
She was satisfied at the time, so we went to Wendy's, and at the time we go to Wendy's, we come back, we go back to her apartment, Bierman, which is where we spend most of our time at. So we go back to her apartment, and it's the first night me hanging out with her, really. No plans on spending the night, but that's what ended up happening. So anyways, we go to Bierman, I'm at her apartment, we're talking, and we're just trying to get to know one another. So she's asking me questions, and you know, one of her questions that came off to me was, she said, I'll never date no man that got kids. You got kids? I said, uh-oh. I said, nope. I had to lie. And the reason why I lied is because I wanted her to get to know me as a person before she judges me off how many kids I have. So I told her no, with the intentions to tell her that I have kids. So anyways, we keep going on with this. She says, you have kids? I say no. And I asked her, I said, I'll never date a woman that got kids. You got kids? She said, nope. So then she told me what she did.
Keep in mind, like, I'm full blown, like, Division I athlete, like living an athletic life, like softball from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, classes every single day, flying in and out of town all the time. Like,
so she told me she plays softball. All right, this is the U of M softball field where I'm.
This is where it went down, baby.
So my lady was kicking ass as a softball player.
Jeremy tried to act like he knew what softball was. Like, my whole family was softball gurus, and this dude's sitting up there, never even seen a softball. And I'm like, I'm so excited. I got my new boyfriend coming to my games. All the girls are like, here he is. And he's like just up there like, what is this?
Yeah, I never knew what softball was until she told me she played softball. I said, what is that, a sport?
Yeah, I flew all the way across the country to play a sport.
Yeah, so she played softball here. I used to come out every weekend when they were home, when they had home games. Sometimes even went to
practices,
out of town games too. But I came here and I cheered my lady on and rooted for her, even though I don't know what I was rooting for, you know.
You know, I'm still living in Barrett Place at this point in time, and me and Jeremy are like, you know, we're an item, but like it hasn't been super exclusive. Like we were dating without like titles at this point in time, and you know, we both kind of felt like the relationship was going places, but neither of us were like fully committed to it. And you know, I think this is probably one of the very first fights where we were like getting into it, and I was walking to practice, and you know, I'll never forget this day in my life. And Jeremy's like, well, I got something to tell you. And I'm like, what? And this is over text message at this point. And he's like, texting me, and he's like, I have kids. Yes, hard pause. That's the same thing. I said, kids? I said, plural? Question mark? And he's like, yeah, I have 3.
Truth.
So at that point in time, a flood of emotions came over me. Like, I'm thinking about my family and my upbringing. Like, I've never been with somebody that had kids. I'm 22 at this point in time, and I'm like thinking about my home and my upbringing, and my parents were married to, you know, the day they passed, and it's like, I don't even know what that means, honestly, at that point in time. And I'm just like, well, with my upbringing, like I'm not a judgmental person. I don't judge you on your past. And the first thing that just came to my mind was, when can I meet him? I'll never forget that day when Jeremy pulled up in front of Barrett Place, where my apartment was, where we started our relationship, and in his car, the same car that he took me on our first date in, had 3 car seats in the back. And I remember just, you know, walking out in the dead of winter and just being nervous as all get out. And we were like, well, where are we going to take them to like introduce them? Because, you know, Jeremy never brought his kids around any other woman. And looking back now and being a mother, that's a huge, huge scenario, or huge like life event. So where we ended up taking the kids was McDonald's. And it's kind of funny to think, because, you know, where he started his first child and where I met his first children, I guess, was at McDonald's. And the thing was like, the ride to that McDonald's was silent. I think the kids were just watching who I was, and, you know, Jeremy's nervous, like, what is this girl gonna do? You know, what's gonna come of this situation? And, you know, I'll never forget, like, we sat there and we got the kids Happy Meals, because, you know, we didn't have no type of money back then. I'm college student, and, you know, him working 2 full-time jobs, like, that was pretty much where our budget lied. And
child support.
Yeah, all that above. But I think the biggest significant or signifier in this story to really propel to where our family has grown from was that when we decided to wrap it up at McDonald's, and walking out of McDonald's, his daughter, who's never met me before, like, ran up to me and grabbed my hand, like, without question. And I'll never forget that feeling. It kind of like brings back like emotions, and like where I'm at with her now in our relationship as a stepmother. It's just like, that's really where it started for me. And, you know, I think at that point in time, we never looked back.
So from the U of M, me and Melissa, we moved here with my mother and my 3 brothers. This is actually the house that when my brother Corey got released from prison, this is where we stayed at. This window right up here actually was my bedroom. This is the living room right here, but this is, we spent what, 2-3 years
About
here?
2 years here, yeah, right after I graduated college, and ended up staying in Minneapolis for about a year after I graduated.
Yep. So this is where we lived at with my mom, and this is kind of like where
This is also where like Jeremy got his kids every weekend. So when, you know, we still were living up here, all 3 kids would come to this house, and it's definitely a full house, but
yeah,
it's kind of where it all started for us, where we branched off to our own life.
3-bedroom house, and it was about 5 or 6 of us living here. So
Packed in like sardines.
we made it work, you know.
Yeah.
We switched rooms, did all kinds of things to make it work. Sometimes we shared rooms. It is what it is, you know. Sometimes you don't have everything to fulfill everything you need in the household, so we made it work. But nonetheless, we all stuck together as a family, and yeah, it's where we spent most of our time at before we even head out, and lived with my dad for about 6 months, and we'll show you guys that area. But we lived with him for 6 months before we left and went to Arizona, baby. All right, so this is after I lived with my mom. We had a little scenario that happened. You know, ended up moving here with my dad, me and my lady Melissa. Moved here with my dad, and I lived with my dad here. Top one up there, right here to the left. I lived with him for about, I want to say, maybe 6 months. It's about all we could handle, and then we was out of here. Off the AZ we went, baby, and that's where it all started in Arizona.
This is where like one significant chapter of our life started and ended,
Yep.
like right here on this corner.
On my birthday.
Yeah.
And I was indecisive on whether or not to move to Arizona and leave my kids here, my 3 that I had previously, or whether or not to go to Arizona and stay here in Minnesota. So I made the decision. My lady was ready to go, and I said, well, we was gonna try long distance. We didn't. I made the choice that I wanted to take that leap and go to Arizona.
I think from the beginning, though, I was very transparent from the U of M to the time that I met you that home for me was in Arizona.
Yeah.
And whatever that looked like for Jeremy, neither of us really had that answer because, I mean, being a father of 3 kids and living across the United States, that was a hard decision. I don't think, you know, up until we actually stepped in the truck that we even really had an answer as a couple or where this, you know, this journey could take us. But one thing we did know is that home was always in Minnesota if he ever needed to come back to it.
Yep, that's true.
So
we made that choice, and you know, I can't say I'm more thankful to hadn't made that choice and moved to Arizona, because it's made the world of a difference for me, for my family, for my kids. It's made me a better man. And like I said, Minnesota, I love Minnesota. It'll always be home to me. But Arizona's raised me as the man I am today. Minnesota made me the young man I was back then. So I couldn't be more thankful. And sometimes you kind of gotta, you know, take that leap of faith and
step outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, charter unmarked territory to figure out where you're gonna go and what you can do, you know, because sometimes the unachievable is achievable when you put your mind to it and just make it happen. And that's what I did when I went to Arizona. I didn't know nobody, only knew my lady and her family, and I stuck with it and trust the process, and here I am today.
So we finally arrived in Arizona, and you know, my mom and my dad like have no idea. Yes, they've met Jeremy at my graduation. Yes, they know he has 3 kids. But do they really know who Jeremy is? When I said I wanted to come home, that I was ready to come home, she welcomed Jeremy as well.
Yes.
So we stepped into my mom's home, and you know, Jeremy chose to leave his 3 kids behind. He didn't have custody of his kids. He didn't have even rights to his kids, because to my knowledge in the state of Minnesota, if you're not married, having children, the woman has all the rights.
All rights goes to the mom.
So when we made a decision to step foot in my house, in my home, in my upbringing, education's everything. Education was pushed on me from a young age, and that's what I knew to be success. Is that success for everyone? No, but that's what my fundamentals were. Upbringing was always pushed around education. So my family's answer to his issues was, you need to get an education. You need to better yourself. What does that look like? You need to find that. Where that, shimmied out to being is that he was going to go to UTI.
My dad taught me how to be a mechanic when I was young, so I learned a lot of basic mechanic stuff when I was younger. So I went to school for diesel because that's something I didn't know. Went to school for that for a year and a month. Graduated with my associate's degree, top of the class, and came out of school right away with a job, making pretty decent money.
And I think what really is, the next step in him, like finding his own personal success outside of his, failed relationship and 3 kids at a young age, was that like he finally had something for himself. He had education, and what we preach to our children is, that's something nobody can ever take away from you.
True.
So, building off of his foundation, boom, he finally has his education. Considering he never even graduated high school, he got his GED, then he got his, associate's degree, and he's standing on his own two as a man. And, something that always kind of never resonated with me, that we chose to leave the kids in Minnesota. So the topic was always like,
to get them.
How are they going to visit? How are we going to make this work? Like, I never felt as a woman or with my personal upbringing that his kids shouldn't be in the picture, that his kids weren't a priority. But at the end of the day, the one, objection and one goal we had in the situation was to be a family. Did we know how to make that work at a young age? Probably not in the best manner, but what we did know is that we wanted the kids to live with us. And at the end of the day, and many thousands of dollars spent and tons of heartache and heartbreak and tears and nearly failed our relationship, did we finally accomplish our goal of having Jeremy's kids live in our home. That's basically just the gist of it. And we're talking about a heated custody battle that's lasted, I don't know,
A couple of years.
6 years. I mean, it's never really stopped, and it's never really fizzled out, I think, because all parties involved are passionate about the kids. Really, at the end of the day, when I reflect on like our relationship and why we aren't married or why we're in the situation we're in, is because there's been 3 kids outside of me and Jeremy's relationship that's had needs above ours.
Yes.
And 2 years ago, right before I had Logan, we became homeowners for the first time.
Yep.
And that was really thanks to my mom, because if my mom...
Big impact.
If my mom didn't let us come to her home, we would have never got Jeremy's education. Like, we would have never had custody of Jeremy's kids. Like,
We never had a home.
yeah, exactly. She took on the financial, burden to ensure not only me as her daughter, but the man that I loved and his children always felt welcome in her home.
Yep.
I mean, up until the day that she passed, they still call her Grandma Tammy.
Yeah.
And that's how much influence my mom had on our entire family.
So to this point in day today, we fast forward approximately a year and a month ago. She passed away a year and a month ago. Very hard for everybody in this situation, very hard for my lady. Her father actually passed away, how long ago?
2012.
2012. So pretty much a year after I had lived in Arizona, her father passed away. The great thing being is I had a great relationship with her father. We did a lot of things together. He really accepted me as who I was. He wasn't too accepting of me in the beginning, but as he got to know me, he was very accepting of me, and I was glad we was able to build that relationship and grow and be, a son to him that he hasn't had, so it was very great to be able to have that relationship with him. And I told him I would always take care of his daughter, and fast forward to her mom passing, the same thing I told her mom, I would always take care of her daughter.
The silver lining at the end of the day of the situation. And I think, with my mom's like stamp of approval, like she said, hey Liz, like, is it time you get your own home? Like, I'm fine. Like, I'm fine without your dad. Like, I'm fine without you guys being here. So I think she like really prepared us as adults and as in like a relationship to take those next steps, becoming a homeowner, becoming a parent, because I don't think really until like I heard those words was I truly ready to have my own child, because Jeremy asked me so many times, like, why haven't we had our own kids? Like, I never felt like we were in a good enough place, or that like when you compare yourself to other people, like we still live with my mom, Jeremy, like we can't start building a family outside of our current family if we're not XYZ. And like, who has the handbook to say that, you know? Like, I just think that like once she gave me that confidence to be like, Liz, like, it's your time to shine, that I was ready to, you know, personally take my next step as a future wife to have my dreams fulfilled outside of Jeremy's dreams fulfilled. And I think that's, you know, at that point in time, that's when Logan came.
Yep. Our little Logie Bear, man, the infamous Logie Bear, he came, and he's definitely changed our world for the better, you know, and it's definitely changed us as being parents, as to our own kids, you know, Logan being our first one together. And as you guys know, we got baby Kennedy brewing in the tummy there, our baby girl. We got baby Kennedy brewing in the tummy. But no, like, nonetheless, you know, having these kids has really helped us together as learning how to parent, you know what I mean? Like, she's took on my kids as kids that aren't hers, but always, and my kids could probably vouch for this, has always acted as if she was their mother, even though she knows, you know, she's not their mother. She's always been there, supported them, always took on everything they wanted to do. Well, you know, we used to coach my daughter's softball team. We coached her for a couple years, right? You know, my lady being the head coach because she was a softball player. And, you know, me, I was the assistant coach. I didn't know anything about it. I learned though, right? Yeah. I learned pretty well. So I learned like the, you know, all the things you need to learn about trying to coach softball. And we did a pretty good job. We won the championship, right? You know, so I mean, it's growth. You know, when we got in, we didn't win a championship. It was levels to it. You know, you got to continue to grow, and you got to stay with it, and you got to trust the process, baby. You know how I tell you guys.
And so you just gotta. Like being said though, that kind of led us to, you know, the endeavor on the YouTube. Like Corey, you know,
my brother, tall guy. He's the one who put us on to the YouTube.
Brought Jeremy, you know, this proposition, like, bro, you should do this. Like, you should do this. You should do this. He'd been in our ear for a while, and you know, me coming from your degree's everything, and Jeremy finally like getting his degree. This is snake oil. This is crazy. Like, what are you talking about? You record yourself, and like you can be successful this way too. Corey came out to Arizona, and I'm working, and Jeremy's having car salesmen calling my cell phone, and I'm like, listen. Either you're gonna make the payment this, or like he's walking. Like, we're not doing this. Like, lo and behold, Jeremy negotiated, you know, his SRT to be like his baby. You know, the general that you guys know it, and that's really where it started. That's where he took that leap of faith. Yes. And took us all out of our comfort zone, because it's like that wasn't a family car. Like, what are you doing? Like, you got. At this time, you know.
Well, it was a sedan.
Get out of here.
You know, you could fit all the kids in the car at the time.
Like sardines, like. Yeah. But I think that's really where Jeremy, you know, took the next step outside of, you know, being a significant other, being a father, and now, you know, being successful in his own personal career to make a personal investment in himself and also his family to. You know, promote another means of financial income, and you know, that's where we're at today.
And we appreciate everybody that's joined the channel, everybody that's subscribed, everybody that likes, comments, all that good stuff, you know, and we appreciate everybody. Everybody that watches the ads too, because we greatly appreciate y'all too. But, you know, a lot of this came, you know, for the YouTube aspect. It's from my brother Tall Guy. We greatly appreciate him. He's the one who pushed me the most to start a YouTube, and when I did start it, there was no looking back, because one thing about us is that, you know, when we start something, there is no end. We just keep going and going until it just don't go anymore. But other than that, we don't look at it as an end. We just keep on going until it goes. So we greatly appreciate everybody that rocks with us, and we hope you enjoyed this life story. It's been a great thing to be able to express to you guys what I went through. I hope you guys can kind of understand, and I hope this helps somebody that, you know, maybe be going through something rough and maybe might have something where you feel like you can't talk to somebody. Just speak up, communicate. Communication is very important. I express this to my kids, I express this to my lady, because it is very important. Without communication, you will have a hard time getting through life. You gotta be communicative, and you gotta express how you feel, because if you don't express how you feel, who's gonna understand? You know, nobody's a mind reader, so you gotta be able to express how you feel, no matter what situation you're in, no matter if it's a parent, child, kid, whatever it may be, friend, just express how you feel. But other than that, man, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the life story, and this is my life, the life of Jeremy Barrett, and we out, baby, with another video. Gang, gang, gang.